Happy Tuesday, and thanks for joining in with this week's live with It's All About Choices. I am Sandra Goldtree. This week, I am up close, personal, candid, no chaser, to the point about my personal health journey. My mission, the big why that I do what I do, is primarily to help people to experience the effects that small changes in eating, exercise, and sleep patterns will have on really three things: the quality of your life, how much energy we have throughout the day, living pain-free, disease-free, the quantity of our life, how long we live on this earth, and how gracefully and independently we age. Being able to walk freely, being able to perform simple activities of daily life. And all three of these are important, but I'm real curious as to which ones really resonate with you the most. Is it the quality of life? Is it the quantity of life? Or is it living gracefully and independently? So I would love to hear what you have to say about that. If you can please put that in the post. But it does truly, truly break my heart when I see people living in pain, not liking what they see in the mirror, tired all the time, on multiple meds, and in some cases on meds, for the meds, living with a chronic illness, or, being newly diagnosed with a chronic illness. And trust me when I say that, many of these situations are preventable. Everything is not linked to genetics or the fact that we're getting older. Our destiny is not always shaped by our family history. I truly believe that the sooner we take action over our own health using safe and effective and long-term solutions, and the earlier that we take action to make our health a priority, then the less sick we are as a country. So we are in the days of where there is so much nutrition information readily available at our fingertips, right? You got the social media, we have the internet, we have television, etc. But some of that information is credible, it's evidence-based, it's safe to follow, it's effective to follow. But unfortunately, a large amount of that information is misguided, misrepresented, kind of conflicting, and sometimes leads to unhealthy side effects that are long-term that people don't realize. So such as a time as this that I share my personal story and my journey. And today I'm going to share 3 points. I'm going to share my struggle with high blood pressure and my denial about losing weight. I'm going to go in deeper detail about my struggle and denial than I have in past videos. Primarily because of fad dieting and restricting carbs and calories and sugar are generally the first course of action that people take when they're trying to address weight loss or they're trying to address a medical condition. And it's really been on my heart to really open up and to speak transparently about this. Secondly, the trigger that led me to finally get help to lose the weight, and how hypertension and losing the weight really changed the direction of my life. I am very interested in knowing that if there are people who are on the call now that currently have high blood pressure or been told that they have pre-hypertension. Generally, it's a lot of comfort in knowing that you're not alone. So if you can please post that in the chat, I'd love that. So my struggle and my denial. So every person has pain points, and most people, especially women, have a weight loss story or stories. And my wake-up call started in my 30s, my early 30s. I was living my best life, so I thought. I went to the doctor regularly, but my blood pressure was beginning to elevate more and more at each visit. I do have a family history of high blood pressure, my mother and my maternal grandmother. And I was advised to buy a blood pressure monitor and began tracking my blood pressure at home, both at home and when I went to doctor's visits every day. They advised me to do this every day. And eventually my blood pressure were consistently, in that pre-hypertensive range, even when I was at home. So it wasn't the white coat syndrome. It was happening at home also. About a year passes and my blood pressure readings were in and out of normal range, pre-hypertensive range, and just pretty much sky high. The doctor tagged me with pre-hypertension, and I was advised to lose about 20 to 25 pounds and to reduce my salt intake. And so I was handed this sheet of paper, that had a list of foods that were high in salt that I was advised to avoid and to follow up in 3 months. Sounds familiar, right? And at the time, when I went back for the reassessment, she would make the decision if she was going to put me on medications or not. And generally, when they're going to put you on meds, that means that the diagnosis comes along with it. And so I would like to know, has anybody ever left the doctor's office feeling hopeless, feeling afraid or unsure as to what to eat? Definitely post that. So I'm around 31 at the time, and I remember this day like it was yesterday. I walked to my car, and I was in total disbelief. For the first time, I left the doctor's office, and I was scared, and I was confused. I was without a plan. I was determined to not get on meds. And more than that, I was prideful. I'm going to be the one to break the family cycle of high blood pressure. Worst of all, I did not know what to do next. I said to myself, how in the world am I going to lose 20 to 25 pounds? I was scared. I was in complete denial because my weight had never been an issue for me. But if I'm honest, the truth of the matter is I was at my highest weight at that time. The weight gain was slow. It was gradual. It was unnoticed, at least by me, for several years. And on top of that, I was exercising every day, So I have testimony that you can't outwork on a bad diet. If you're not eating right, if you're not eating enough, eventually your body will shut down and you will not lose the weight that you want to lose or that you desire to lose, much less keep it off. And so despite the constant reminders by my doctor, I had a difficult time accepting the fact that I was overworking my heart, that I was placing myself at higher risk for diabetes because I did not take it seriously. I did not take it seriously that I had hypertension or pre-hypertension at all. I didn't do anything about trying to lose weight for over a year. Does that sound familiar? Does that relate to anybody? If so, please post if you've ever felt scared or in denial about, something that the doctor has shared with you about your health. But I did, what most people do, and we still do when we get unfavorable news from the doctor. Back then, we called it the World Wide Web. So I self-educated. I was still a computer programmer and analyst at the time. So, I was all about finding credible nutrition information, that focused specifically on hypertension. And my research led me to the DASH eating pattern, which emphasizes whole foods, such as the whole grains, the beans, the fresh fruit, the dried fruit without the added sugar, the low-fat dairy, vegetables, nuts, lean protein, and heart-healthy fats in moderation. And it did not restrict sugar, alcohol, or sweets, but it recommended it sparingly. So hence, a lifestyle, right? And a side note, DASH diet stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. And it's actually been rated one of the top eating patterns for several years and #1 for many years in a row. So anybody has heard of the DASH eating pattern, I would love to hear if you have heard about that, because it's a very well-rounded and very good eating pattern. So the blessing for me was that, I was able to make the best changes, not overly restrict, not cut out food groups, not do things that would have unknowingly caused me more health problems down the line. And the first good news was, it really was an eye-opener for me because I did not realize how nutrient poor I was really eating back then and how sodium rich that I was eating. Now, mind you, I wasn't cooking with salt. I wasn't shaking salt on my food. I mean, I grew up with a mother who had high blood pressure, so that was a no-no. I was eating out on the weekends, so I was eating out quite a bit on the weekends. But for 3 months, I said, okay, I'm gonna faithfully follow the patterns, of what they're saying how to eat on this DASH eating plan. And so I cleaned up my eating patterns significantly. I actually did not eat out during this 3 months. Restaurants and elevated blood pressure, they don't mix. But that's a different topic outside of this live. But I did see visible benefits. I mean, I felt better. I had more energy than I ever had before. My nails were stronger. My hair was, stronger. My skin was glowing. But the not so good news. my blood pressure was still inconsistent. So sometimes it was normal, sometimes it was normal high, which is what they mean by pre-hypertensive, and sometimes it was just sky high, both at home and when I went to the doctor. So very similar to yo-yo dieting, when we lose and we gain a large amount of weight, I pretty much was yo-yo dieting with my heart, figuratively speaking. Both were dangerous and and both had long-term implications. So my problem was I was only really addressing one half of the equation. I reduced the sodium intake, I increased the potassium, the magnesium, the calcium, which these are known nutrients that help with blood flow and for blood pressure, but my weight was still high. Some weight loss occurred, but nothing significant. The DASH diet is really not directly geared towards weight loss. You have to really make some adjustments to facilitate weight loss. And that was the piece that I was missing at the time that I really didn't know. So I continued following, the healthy eating pattern, and another year passed us by. The doctors are still warning me, I'm overworking my heart. Now I'm placing myself at risk for kidney disease. But at the same time, the doctors saw that I was trying to make changes and I was trying to address this with lifestyle. They knew I didn't want to get on meds. So they basically took the position, let me know when you're ready to start and we'll write the script. So I would like to know, has anybody ever had a similar experience where, the doctor's telling you one thing, but you're still trying to find another way to make it work, without meds. So if you have a similar story, please post that. So at this time, I'm feeling some kind of way. I started to see a nephrologist because now I'm scared about my kidneys. And so I wanted to make sure my kidney functions were fine. So fortunately, there were no decline in my kidney function, but my heart and my mind was still unsettled because I knew that I was placing myself at risk for both diabetes and now kidney disease. And so the trigger that finally said, okay, I need to get help. I'm around 32, and between 32, 33 years old, and I visited a dialysis center. And if anybody has a family member or friend who's on dialysis, please chime in and share what you thought of that experience when you saw that person on dialysis. But basically, when somebody's on dialysis, they have little to no kidney function. And in many cases, not all, people are on dialysis due to uncontrolled hypertension or uncontrolled diabetes over 10, 20 plus years. Okay, so this is not a quick progression. Seeing this in my early 30s terrified me. Okay, I mean, seeing people hooked up to a machine 3 times a week for 3 to 4 hours per session, that really shook me up. And I thought, wow, man, I'm being prideful. I'm trying to fix this problem with my blood pressure. I'm adamant about not wanting to get on a pill, but I'm also asking to be on dialysis, in my latter years. And at that moment, I thought to myself, okay, Sandra, you know better. And I really made the decision at that moment to really get serious about losing the extra weight. And I finally accepted my own failed attempts at trying to lose weight specifically. And I sought out the help of a registered dietitian, and that I had access to through a workout program that I was a part of. And based on her direction, she more finely tuned the changes, more fine-tuned changes were made to how I was eating to help facilitate a healthy weight loss. At the same time, still following the principles of DASH so that my blood pressure would not be affected in the process. So over the course of 3 months, I lost 20 pounds. And I remember feeling confident and good because I'm like, okay, my eating is on point, my weight is finally down, and I felt good just because I wasn't carrying as much weight that I was carrying. So even after losing the weight, my blood pressure was still not in check. I still had periods when it was normal, and I had periods when it was sky high. And at my next doctor's visit, honestly, I threw in the towel. I said, give me the pill. At this point, I'm stressed out, trying to make the changes on my own, trying to manage my blood pressure. I'm stressed out. I was mad because I'm like, okay, I've seen people lose 10 pounds and their blood pressure gets normal, but I realize I'm an anomaly, y'all. But I was angry, and at this point, I truly was being counterproductive. I was gambling with my own quality of life. I was gambling with my own quantity of life and my own independence later on down the line. Remember, I saw what dialysis looked like. But unfortunately, along with succumbing to taking the pill, now I have the official diagnosis of essential hypertension. And the word essential means that there was no known cause for it. So I'm angry, I'm disappointed, I'm frustrated. In my mind, I'm like, I did everything that the doctors asked me to do. I felt, what's the point in making all these changes if I'm still having blood pressure issues? I was mad and bitter for a long, long time. And I even went down the rabbit hole. I was like, I might as well eat what I want to eat, and just take a pill because it's not going to make a difference. I went there. If anybody can relate to that, I definitely would love to hear, you did all this work, you did everything that was asked of you, and it still didn't work. So please post if you have a testimony like that. And finally, the Lord just said to me, if I hadn't made those changes to my eating habits, had I not lost the weight, I would have more health problems than just my blood pressure. I was heading down a slippery slope of health problems, and I of course I didn't know that. So I even went to a cardiologist to further investigate my heart problems because I wanted the answers. I wanted to know why weight loss and changing my eating, why it didn't work for me. On the surface, the doctor looked at my labs, my weight, my body composition, my eating, my exercise, and the cardiologist said that I didn't fit the profile of someone who has high blood pressure or blood pressure that can get as high as mine was getting. I mean, there were times my blood pressure was over 150s, over 150. It was high, okay? And so for them to determine the root cause of why my blood pressure was so elevated, I would have to undergo extensive and invasive testing. And the doctor advised against putting myself through that, especially being in my early 30s. He said it just wasn't worth it. And I appreciated his honesty, and I took his advice, and I let it go. At that point, I just accepted my fate. High blood pressure is with me for the rest of my life. I truly believe, though, that the denial, the challenges, the changes, were God's way of showing me a different direction for my life. At that moment, I stopped looking at the diagnosis as a setback. And I began to see it as a blessing that ultimately saved my life, that changed the course of my life. That's testimony for others to take action a lot sooner than what I did. My comeback. The process of researching and trying to get a handle on my own blood pressure and trying to lose the weight with the help of a dietitian were all catalysts that led me to go back to school on faith after 15 years, and I earned a second bachelor's in dietetics. Why? Because I wanted to accurately and have the backing to be able to inform people of the best way to increase their energy levels, lose the weight, keep it off, build a healthy body from the inside out. And I had 2 aha moments, during this 2 to 3 year journey that I had. And I would never forget. I would never forget how I felt that day when I walked out of that office, after being tagged with prehypertension, not wanting others to experience getting a cookie cutter plan of action, lose weight, stop eating this, cut that out, without no real direction on how to do it. That's one of my biggest frustrations is that when people are newly diagnosed with a chronic illness, or maybe they're told they're pre-diabetic or they're pre-hypertensive or their cholesterol levels are rising, but they don't have any real guidance or support to know what to do to fix it. And they don't even get a referral to a dietitian to try to address it before it progresses. And that leads me to my second aha moment, where I was witnessing how many people were following misguided information to lose weight quickly or to get control over a health condition, unknowingly putting themselves at risk for other health problems because they're focused so much on losing the weight or addressing that one particular health scare versus looking at the whole total body. So for those of you who do have high blood pressure, I would love for you to share some of the things that you've done to lower your blood pressure and that's been able to keep it in normal range, because I think that would be something that's helpful for others, because what I've learned is what works for one doesn't work for everybody else, So my life now. So it's been about 17 years since I lost the 20 pounds, and I continue to maintain a 20 to 25 pound weight loss. During that time, in those 17 years, I got married about 8.5 years ago, had a son about 6 years ago. And I mention that only because those are significant life events that usually cause people to gain weight. How did I do it? How did I do it? Eating balanced, staying well nourished. I do truly believe that food is medicine for the mind, the body, and the soul. And I also believe in eating. I love having more energy than my 5-year-old son. I'm actually in better shape now than I was back when I initially lost the weight, because through consistent nutrition and exercise using various modalities over the years has led me, to body composition changes. And so my cholesterol, my blood sugar, hormone levels, vitamin, mineral levels, they're all in check, y'all. They're all in check, and I praise God for that. But certainly not least, I have the pleasure of doing what I love to do, which is helping people who are struggling to lose weight and keep it off, helping people to manage one or more health conditions, and to help people just know what's best to eat. There's a lot of confusion. What's the best thing to eat for their situation or for their particular medical condition? So I say all that to say, if I can do it, so can you. I had to get out of my head. I had to accept the fact that I needed help, that I needed guided support to really make real change and to make it last. 17 years later, I have lifestyle habits for life. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Do I ever get off course? Definitely. That's life. But I hope that you find my testimony, my story motivating. Please post which topics that you would like to hear more information on in future lives. I do want this to become an informative and learning forum for everybody who's tuning in. And I thank you for tuning in with It's All About Choices. I pray that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next week. Blessings. Bye-bye.